Last week, India and Pakistan faced each other in the worst crisis in decades. As in the past, the main object of contention was the disputed region of Kashmir. Considering that both powers possess nuclear weapons, such high levels of tensions raise fears of a military escalation in South Asia, which would have detrimental consequences for international stability. I'm your host Kasim, and thanks for joining me for this very important KJ vid. In this video we will discuss the recent conflict between India and Pakistan. But just before we begin, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can help to fund our videos and make KJ Vids self-sustainable. Some of you may have noticed the re-upload of some of our old videos. We've had to do this due to YouTube's demonetization policies. If we were self-sustainable on Patreon, we wouldn't have these type of issues. You can also access our full reports and exclusive content by becoming our Patreon member from as little as $1 per month. The conflict over Kashmir is as old as its contenders. Immediately after India and Pakistan became independent following the dismantlement of the British Raj in 1947, a vivid dispute emerged over the Kashmir region. Whilst being mostly inhabited by Muslims, the area was ruled by a Hindu lord who decided to join India instead of Pakistan. This soon resulted into open war between the two countries, which ended the following year with a ceasefire that divided the disputed region into an India-administered zone and a Pakistani-controlled one. Another war over Kashmir was fought in 1965, which ended again with a ceasefire that did not actually solve the controversy. Two other armed conflicts followed. First, the 1971 war, which was not provoked by tension over Kashmir but included fighting in the area, and which ended with the final definition of the de facto border along the line of control. Second, the Kargil conflict in 1999, which had a rather limited scale. Since then, various skirmishes have taken place up to the recent crisis. On February the 14th, a suicide bombing revendicated by the Pakistani-based Jaish-e-Mohammed group killed 44 soldiers in India-controlled Kashmir. A brief fight took place a few days later as Indian troops searched for militants. On February the 26th, India conducted an airstrike on a terrorist base on Pakistani territory. That, according to Islamabad's authorities, never occurred, as the Pakistani Air Force successfully intercepted the Indian planes and obliged them to retreat before reaching the target. The crisis reached its climax on the next day. Pakistan responded by conducting its own airstrikes on objectives in India-administered Kashmir, resulting in an air battle whose actual outcome is disputed. What is certain is that at least one Indian jet was shot down and that Pakistan captured an Indian pilot, who was later released. Artillery shelling also took place as the crisis unfolded. To better understand the issue, it is necessary to examine why Kashmir is so important to push India and Pakistan to fight over it. First, there are geostrategic reasons. Kashmir is located at the crossroad between northern Pakistan, northern West India and Chinese-ruled Tibet. This means that controlling Kashmir allows to access Central Asia and its energy resources, but also the Indian subcontinent and finally China via the immense Tibetan plateau. Then, Kashmir is regarded by both sides as a vital national security matter. From Pakistan's perspective, ruling the region is essential to have strategic depth against a hypothetical Indian invasion. As a matter of fact, if India controlled the whole of Kashmir, it could easily attack the capital Islamabad, and the current line of control is already quite close to it. From India's point of view, dominating Kashmir is important to avoid that Pakistani and Chinese forces might join for an attack on India, especially considering the current rivalry between New Delhi and Beijing, plus the latter's very close ties with Islamabad. In this regard, we should not forget that China controls around 20% of Kashmir, namely the Aksai Chin, an area also claimed by India. Moreover, being an ethnically fragmented country, India is also afraid that letting Kashmir join Pakistan could set a precedent and spark separatism in other areas. But there are also economic reasons. Dominating Kashmir means controlling the water flow in the Indus River basin, which is essential for Pakistan's agriculture. Last but not least, Kashmir has been made since the beginning a highly symbolic issue, to the point that it can be considered as a central component of the national identity of both sides. For India to confirm its nature of secular state and for Pakistan to affirm itself as the protector of all Muslims in South Asia. At this point, it is possible to explore the political factors that have determined India's and Pakistan's moves during the latest crisis. In India's case, the decision to launch an airstrike on Pakistani territory in response to the February 14th bombing was mainly driven by the need to demonstrate the government's determination and its capability to protect India's national interest against foreign threats, especially considering the alleged involvement of the historical Pakistan rival and that the issue revolved around Kashmir. It was a message addressed first and foremost to a national audience, especially considering the upcoming Indian general elections. Modi's ruling BJP party, whose ideological base lies on Hindu nationalism, needed to show the electorate that it is able to effectively stand against Islamist terrorism and strike it even on foreign land. In short, the airstrike was ordered as a means to boost domestic approval, notably as the Congress party, the main opposition force, is gaining consensus. As far as Pakistan is concerned, responding to India's air raid was again a matter of showing the executive's ability to stand up to India and protect the national interest, notably on such a sensitive issue such as the Kashmir dispute. This was even more important because of the current situation in Pakistan, in which the country is experiencing financial troubles over its debt, and the US, its long-standing ally, has recently suspended aid as Trump accuses Islamabad of sponsoring terrorism. In such a complicated context, it was important for Prime Minister Imran Khan to appear firm and use the issue to create a rally around the flag effect. After tensions peaked on February the 27th, it seems that the crisis is now over. On the material plan, there are no winners nor losers. The line of control has not changed and the physical losses of the two sides are negligible. What really counts in this contest are perceptions in front of the respective domestic audience and secondarily in front of the international community. At the beginning, India seemed to have gained the upper hand. It conducted an airstrike against the Islamist militants and claimed to have destroyed their base, killing hundreds of them, which made it appear strong and capable of responding to the threat. However, Pakistan's rapid response and the subsequent shooting down of the Indian aircraft reversed this perception. India appeared to unable to promptly and effectively manage the Pakistani incursion in military terms, and Modi's silence made him look unable to react. In addition, what circulated on the world's media were not the images of the supposedly destroyed terrorist-based bombing by the Indian Air Force, but rather those of the Indian jet wreckage and of the captured pilot. Some could claim that in reality Modi was simply applying restraint to avoid an escalation and that he succeeded in having the pilot released, and it is possible that he will retaliate at a later stage. After all, the Indian airstrikes arrived more than 10 days after the suicide bombing against the Indian soldiers. But the most immediate perception was that he could not handle the crisis, thus damaging his image as a strong leader, and this could affect his performance in the upcoming elections. On his part, Khan looks like the winner of the crisis. First, he was able to quickly and firmly respond to India's strike by retaliating in a symmetric manner, showing that Pakistan has the military capability to confront India. Secondly, he intervened repeatedly to call for moderation and decided to free the pilot in an appeasing sign to peacefully solve the crisis. It could be argued that this was the best course for him to follow. India remains stronger than Pakistan in terms of raw power, and neither side has an interest in an escalation that could possibly turn nuclear. Yet he appeared as a charismatic and wise statesman, and this boosted his stature at the international level. However, things are more complex on the domestic side. While some have praised Khan for his ability and moderation, to the point that an official resolution has been approved in Pakistan for proposing him for the Nobel Peace Prize, the most nationalist wing of the public opinion was angered by his decision to release the pilot. They regard it as an unnecessary act of weakness, claiming that he had to be detained to punish India for the crimes it commits in Kashmir, and maybe also as a bargaining tool. Considering that this faction is not a small minority, Khan's popularity could also suffer. In practical terms, the crisis produced no real winner, since the situation in Kashmir remains the same. Determining the actual winner of the crisis is purely a matter of narrative, even though Khan's image seems to have benefited the most in the general perception. Yet this does not mean that the confrontation had no concrete effects. It is to be expected that measures will be taken on India's side to ensure a better performance in the case of another similar contingency. And in the wake of the crisis, Pakistan decided to oppose the admission of India as an observer in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. China, who has interests at stake notably in the form of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, has called on both sides to practice restraint. But most importantly, the episode marked a peak in tensions between South Asia's two nuclear-armed powers, which potentially opens war scenarios that would surely have detrimental effects for regional stability. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. What are your views on the India-Pakistani conflict? Will it escalate further? Did Imran Khan do the right thing? We would love to hear your views in the comments below, whether you are from India or Pakistan. Please don't forget to support us on Patreon so we can produce more of these geopolitical reports. That's all for today guys, thanks again and see you next time.